what's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of PTW. That's Poor Taste Wrestling. I am JJ, Job Van Dam Travers, and I'm joined, as always, by Mike, the Wolverine Purcell, and Pat, the Hardcore Kid Ross. This is one hell of a good weekend for WWE wrestling. This is the best wrestling I think I've seen out of the company in a while, like including both pay-per-views this weekend and Raw and SmackDown. Overall, I was really pleased with it. But before we get into all of that, there's something much more important we have to talk about. And that is that the boss is back.
Could it be?
Yes.
Could it be? It's boss time, baby.
Michael Cole was holding that in for like 6 months.
Well, I was saying to
The only thing that gets him off anymore.
Pat and Dana when it happened, I was like, he reminded me of like Ron Burgundy when they put the question mark on the teleprompter. He was like, oh my.
And speaking of which, did you know Ron Burgundy has a podcast?
I did, yes.
I just found that out like yesterday.
He interviewed Kamala Harris.
Oh, really?
So random, yeah.
I did not know that. But yeah, Michael Cole is just like, that's his big thing. Oh my. And then he just said it like, oh, it's whose music could this be? I wonder who's coming out.
He said it in like an extremely long, like he like didn't take like a split second to breathe. He was like, "Oh my, could it be? It is. It's boss time."
Yeah. Either way, his less than satisfactory commentary aside, this was fucking awesome. I loved every part of this segment. And before we dig into it, do you guys know? Can you guess what my favorite part about this whole thing was? Besides Sasha coming back.
Was it her ripping off her weave to reveal her other weave?
No. Pat?
Was it her interrupting Natalya talking about her dead dad?
That is a very close second for me. But no.
Was it the crowd happy about them doing that or her doing that?
Them chanting "Thank you, Sasha, for beating up Natalya" while she talked about her dead dad was pretty brutal. But again, no. My favorite part about this whole thing is that they didn't fucking tell us it was going to happen, and look how much cooler it was because of that.
Yeah, it's true. It was a genuine surprise. I was pretty bummed that we didn't get it at SummerSlam. But
I was just gonna pose that question whether or not it made more sense to do it on SummerSlam, or I mean, SummerSlam was pretty packed and had a lot going for it to begin with, and this was just like another reason to watch Raw.
Yeah, it kind of gave it like its own moment because this was definitely in my mind, I'd say this was the highlight of Raw. Whereas if it happens at SummerSlam, it would have kind of gotten lost because there was a lot of good stuff.
I guess, and if it happened at SummerSlam, it probably would have been Sasha turning on Bayley pretty immediately. Whereas now at least they can kind of tease it out a little bit. They can go a couple weeks, maybe next week it's, Bayley's like, well, are you really the way you are saying you are? Like, don't do this to me. We had such a good run.
I actually don't see that happening at all. I don't think they're going to put them back together. I think they're going to separate them.
My favorite part coming out of this was that it seemed to set up a Sasha-Becky feud.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely.
Heel Sasha versus face Becky is like a program that I didn't know that I needed, but I'm so pumped for it.
You wouldn't find it weird that they would just like completely ignore each other though, with Sasha coming back and Bayley being her former tag partner?
No, I mean, first off, it's WWE, so no, that's just like par for the course with them. And second off, I think that Bayley Sasha has been just driven far into the ground like a million times over, and it's time to do something new. Like if Sasha came back and started something with Bayley again, I would be pretty annoyed by it, honestly. Like, it's so refreshing to me that she went after Natalya and fought Becky, and Bayley had nothing to do with it. Like, they've told that story time and time again. One day I'm sure they'll do it again and that'll be fine, but for right now, like, I want something new, and I feel like Sasha probably wants something new. Like, how many times are they gonna have them dance around each other? Like, this is so much better.
To be put in a program with Becky Lynch, who's like the top of the women's division right now, yeah, that's exactly where she wants to be.
Yeah, and thirdly, they're on separate brands, which supposedly is going to start to matter again. And thinking back, like I was thinking this watching Raw, I think that the only SmackDown superstar that was on Raw was Andrade. They didn't even have Roman on.
Yeah, I was gonna just mention that I feel like both shows, for the first time in a long time, actually felt like separate brands.
Yeah, I think they're slowly getting back to that. There was a rumor that after SummerSlam they were going to phase out the wild card rule. We haven't heard anything about that in a few weeks, which is great.
Well, it would be just like them to completely ignore it out of the blue.
Yeah. But this is a situation where I would be happy if they just completely drop something that they started up a couple weeks prior.
Yeah. I don't know that anyone is going to argue for them to keep it. And I feel like now that Fox is on the horizon, they need to do that anyways, because there's no way that that's going to work between those two shows.
I was going to say it probably is just them getting into position for when the Fox deal happens.
Yeah. But circling back to Sasha before we move on to something else, I just thought the whole segment, like, it was the best segment on Raw, hands down. It might have been like my best. It was the best out-of-ring segment for me over the whole weekend, including SmackDown, TakeOver, and SummerSlam. Like, I loved how she pulled the weave off, and, like, it just felt like her just, like, you know, very symbolically transforming into the heel. The crowd, man. I'll give Natalya this. I did not think her match with Becky was going to be any good, and it was pretty good. And I thought that I treated it unfairly, so I went back and rewatched it, and it was better than I wanted to admit that it was. But I did really, really love when the crowd was chanting, "Thank you, Sasha," while she beat up the face who was talking about her dead father. Like, that was so brutal.
In Canada, no less.
Oh, man, that must have stung for Natalie.
Yeah. I think it's a bold claim to say this is the best thing that happened the entire weekend.
I was going to say, it was like the Fiend.
No, I'm not saying like
out of
overall.
ring.
I'm saying out of the ring. Like, there's things that happen, like matches that are far better.
But
I'm
even
just
the
saying,
ring,
like,
the Fiend's entrance?
I don't count that as like I'm saying like promos, interviews, backstage nonsense. Like, the Fiend would be an in-ring segment for me.
Okay. I can dig it, Saga.
But yeah, loved it. Super stoked she's back. Can't wait to see her and Becky feud. I hope that's what we're getting here. Very big fan. All right. So first time in a while, we got a mailbag. So Nate, thank you. Nate writes in, "Hey guys, longtime listener, love the show. I wanted to know what you make of the rumors surrounding NXT going to Fox and being in a 2-hour format. Thanks." Pat, let's have you start us off on this. What do you think?
I mean, I really hope not. So there's been all sorts of rumors that it's gonna be live too, in addition to a 2-hour format. I'm assuming that's what Nate was getting at. And it's going to be on Fox Sports 1. I could totally see that happening, that they would want to put it on an actual television network, especially just, as much as I hate to admit it, to try to fuck with AEW just a little bit more, because that would be going head-to-head with Dynamite or Revolution or whatever this ends up being called. But with that comes the looming specter of Vince McMahon involving himself more, and that's what I really like. I would be open to NXT going to 2 hours. I think they have the talent for it. It's not necessarily what I would prefer, but I don't think that would be a death knell for it. Going live, I'm not inherently against that, because generally, as a rule, I think live wrestling is a lot better than taped wrestling. But just like the unique atmosphere that NXT has at Full Sail, I mean, you have to wonder if it's going to be at Full Sail
or if they're going to turn it into its actual own brand.
Yeah, and then that becomes, well, are they going to tape it before SmackDown like they did with ECW when that was the third brand? And I feel like that's the death knell. That would make it just not matter, because... Yeah,
my biggest fear, sorry to interject, but my biggest fear is that they take away Full Sail or whatever small arenas that they're doing this in, if they decide to take it across country, and then they just make it one of those things that they tape before SmackDown or before Raw.
I don't see that happening. I think the roster is too deep, and the track record for NXT is too successful for them to completely break away from the format they have. I could see them adding an hour. I could even see them going live, but to throw it before an already 3-hour live show and 2-hour live show. Well, I guess you can say SmackDown's 3 as well, because of 205 Live just feels like a spectacularly bad idea and a break from format that even Vince, I feel like, can't be that stupid. Like, It just seems like they have such a solid base at Full Sail and such a good system in place. Like NXT is across the board, I feel like viewed by wrestling fans everywhere as like one of the top brands in the world.
For
and
sure.
Every single takeover across the board, almost every match is always like 4 out of 5 stars, if not higher. It just seems like even Vince can't be dumb enough to try to pull something like that.
Yeah, when when you were saying like how good this weekend of wrestling was, because both pay-per-views ended up being great, it's pretty consistent with NXT to be on that list. It's usually the main roster pay-per-views that fall flat and kind of drag down the weekend. But yeah, my biggest fear, going into those rumors that Vince McMahon is going to be more involved in NXT, which is like a real bummer because I think NXT is a great opportunity for other people to kind of get their toes wet and, learn the ropes as far as running a show. It seemed like such a great proving ground for that reason. But then even just like going to 2 hours, I think they will probably be stretching themselves a little thin. I think the 1 hour and kind of like rotating the roster every other weekend or every other week is perfect because, you get a little bit of somebody and you look forward to other people and you're never like oversaturated with any one person. I think the 1 hour, like I think NXT was designed as developmental, and I think it works perfectly as developmental and exactly what it's been doing. But at the same time, I understand why they want to try to take it to the next level. They almost called AEW's bluff with them putting their show on Wednesday. It's like, what else can you really do but try to match what exactly it is that this other show is going to do? Because if you don't, then the other show is going to overtake whatever program you have on at that day and time.
Yeah, but I mean, with NXT and just like the taped kind of nature of it and the fact that it's on the network and it's available digitally, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I would have to imagine that a lot of people just watch it on demand later.
Yeah, like when it's convenient.
Don't necessarily, yeah.
Yeah. Is there a negative to keeping it available on NXT for Fox? Like if they're already going to have it on their network and they've already paid
available
WWE,
on the WWE network, you mean?
Yeah, like is there a big problem having it available on both for them?
It could be one of those things where it's like live on Fox, but then immediately goes up on the network. I think that would, if they were to do it that way, I don't think I would have any complaints.
Yeah, or just like the Hulu model of it's up there the next morning.
And the other thing I think about is like the plan, as far as we know, is to have Triple H take over one day. So wouldn't putting NXT in its current format on a major network like Fox and adding an hour and perhaps making it live be like a really good challenge for Triple H to show before he steps into Vince's role that he can handle that type of responsibility and that type of transition for a brand that he's developed and curated and overseen himself? So like,
yeah, that's a good point. That's like it would be kind of like the next step, because everyone loves NXT, but one of the common kind of pushback is like, oh yeah, but it's such like a unique atmosphere. Like it's always the same fans. It's a small arena. It's those fans are like very hardcore and like know everybody. So yeah, going to a 2-hour format on a basic cable channel, like that would definitely be the next step to see if to kind of condition Triple H to be able to take over Raw and SmackDown more easily.
So I almost feel like because of that, like they wouldn't put Vince like in control of anything because it would be a great test for Triple H to show that he's ready to take over.
But the rumor is that Vince McMahon is going to have more say and control over it. Like I agree. Like I mean, if you think about it, Triple H is 50. Like, he arguably has far more experience than Vince McMahon ever did when he took over the WWF. So, like, I don't think there's any reason that Triple H can't and shouldn't be running NXT on his own. I mean, I think just the idea of it to begin with was kind of like, oh, whatever. It can be your, like, little, experiment. And he, like, made it a really successful thing. So I don't think there's any reason he shouldn't be helming this when it goes to like Fox or whatever it might be, or even if it's just 2 hours live. But yeah, it'll be a huge bummer if Vince McMahon feels the need to be a part of it, because he really just doesn't need to be at all.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't need to be, but just like by the nature of it being on a cable station and being exposed to like a lot more potential viewers, I feel like Vince just wouldn't like be able to help himself. And that's kind of what Dave Meltzer was saying. Like, he said just like by the very nature of it, like he would have to become more involved with NXT if it were to move to Fox Sports 1.
It's possible. I don't know. With the XFL coming and Heyman and Bischoff's supposed involvement, you never know. He could be taking some kind of step back. But while we were talking, I looked up NXT's roster, and it is huge. Like, there's a ton of male and female talent that they reserve for house shows, and we don't really see on the hour programming each week. So I really don't think they would have a problem filling an extra hour with people. And
I
it would
don't
even
think so
possibly give them
either.
the opportunity to add like a female tag belt or something like that.
Well, the WWE women's tag titles are supposed to be defended down in NXT too.
Yeah, maybe they
That's a
could
good
actually
point.
start putting it on the show.
Yeah, true. Yeah, but that's kind of one of the things that makes NXT unique, right? That it's only 1 hour, so like people have time to shine. They don't try to cram everyone into every show. Like, 1 week is the Undisputed Era week. The next week is a week where they focus on like Bianca Belair, whatever. If they move to 2 hours, they're gonna have to that allows them to like really focus on storylines in a more big picture kind of way, rather than being like, okay, how are we gonna fill 2 hours this week? Like, what are we going to do with the Undisputed Era this week just to get through this episode?
Yeah, but then it ends up being every week.
Yeah, like it would change the very nature of NXT.
I totally agree with you, and I don't want to see it happen. I can just, like, looking at the roster, I can see the argument being made that they can do it, though. That's all I'm saying there. It'll be interesting to see. I mean, a lot of stuff is going to change when they go on Fox. So great question, Nate. Thanks for writing in. Appreciate it. You guys ready to talk about what happened this weekend?
Yeah.
Preference between each show?
Are we going to try to get to them all?
No. I mean, just like, all right, Muff. What was your favorite part of Takeover and SummerSlam?
Well, I was just gonna go with the triple threat: Velveteen Dream, Pete Dunne, and Roderick Strong. This Roderick Strong looked, no pun intended, very strong during this. I think he's one of those guys that is very consistent and puts on a good show, but for whatever reason, he kind of always just, at least for me, like I always kind of just forget about how good he is.
It could be said that he's a big, strong boy.
Yeah, he's a very big, strong boy. But yeah, and just I forgot Pete Dunne was gonna be in this match, and then when he got thrown in, I was just and then. I mean, these guys put on a great match, and then the ending. I can't even remember exactly how it ended. I just remember there being Velveteen Dream elbow dropped somebody after somebody did something, right?
So at the end, Roderick Strong was going to, I believe, he was going to pin Pete Dunne, and Velveteen Dream.
Oh, he elbow
like,
dropped him, but then like continued
he
on.
Just like
and,
tackled the
landed
referee,
on
basically.
Pete Dunne, didn't he?
Yeah, Roderick Strong hit Pete Dunne with the heartache, and then Velveteen Dream elbow dropped him, and then
but then just laid on him.
Yeah.
But yeah, fantastic match. The entrance for Velveteen Dream, very funny. With that like tribute to Canada.
The Mounties,
Yeah,
and the
the
cheerleaders.
Mountie.
It was
What the
ridiculous.
fuck? Never thought I would hear the Mountie theme song on television again.
Yeah, I mean, those three guys are three of the best in-ring performers in NXT. I mean, this is said over and over again, but like Velveteen Dream is like a future like brand representative for the main roster and world champion. That guy is just like so naturally charismatic. Even when he sits still, it's like a leaky water faucet. It's just like, can't wait to get out of him. I love it. Roddy just needs to be a heel forever. He is a shit face, but I love watching him work as a heel. And Pete Dunne, I mean, what do you need to say? Longest reigning UK champ, well deserved, and I love that he's here. I love that they're doing this kind of cross brand thing with where he's over here, and you got a few people that have gone over UK like Cassius Ohno, and I feel like there was somebody else who I can't remember right now. But either way,
yeah, that's quite the trade right there. Cassius Ohno for Pete Dunne. that was not a fair deal for sure.
I think one of my favorite moments was another like backstage segment, and that was with Matt Riddle during what the hell do they call it?
Watch along.
Yeah, so they had a watch along backstage during SummerSlam. So he was sitting with people backstage watching SummerSlam, like right after Dolph Ziggler and Goldberg's match, and he was telling them how he was walking backstage and somebody bumped his shoulder and it was Goldberg. And if you don't know the story between Goldberg and Matt Riddle has been shitting all over Goldberg on Twitter for a while, just calling him an awful wrestler and bad for the business and yada yada. And apparently Matt Riddle was like, "Oh, hey, how's it going, bro?" And Goldberg was like, "I'm not your bro." And he was like, "We need to talk." And Riddle was like, "All right, bro, let's do it." And he's like, "Not now," or something. And he just kept getting madder and madder. And Riddle was basically like, "All right, take it easy, bro." And Goldberg again was like, "I'm not your bro." And then finally Riddle was like, "All right, well, see you later, bro." And again, Goldberg with, "I'm not your bro." So I don't know. I feel like this type of thing might not be something that WWE wants Riddle talking about on this show, but apparently it was allowed. From everything I've heard, he's got a lot of heat on himself lately for all the shit he's been talking about certain wrestlers, important ones like Goldberg being a prime example, but it was fucking hilarious.
I mean, this is one of those things that like it brings eyes and like attention to that show, like the watch along thing. Like, I mean, that's what makes it interesting to watch. So I feel like I'm sure they like, you know, they're like, "Oh, we don't want you doing this," but like they're not going to punish him for doing it.
First of all, I don't think anyone, like any executive, certainly not Vince, watches watch along, or like I'd be surprised if Vince even knew that it existed. They had Pat McAfee, that guy, the former punter for the Colts, who like started doing pre-shows with WWE. He was on a few pay-per-views ago, and he was talking about how about the incident that he had with Michael Cole, where he almost got fired for wearing shorts to WrestleMania.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
So they really just kind of talk about whatever they want there. But on the point with Riddle and Goldberg, this has gotten so like over the top that I am starting to feel like it's a work.
You think so?
I mean, Goldberg's back. He needs a new body to chew up and spit out.
They wouldn't do that to Riddle, though. I mean, unless they were punishing him, they wouldn't like. I don't think that they would just job Riddle to Goldberg like that. I feel like they've got really high hopes for Riddle because he goes over most people.
Well, yeah. I mean, maybe that would be his
that would
start
be amazing,
of his big push.
Actually.
Yeah, if they have Goldberg beat a couple other people of like a Dolph Ziggler caliber, and then like six months to a year from now,
like Mania,
Matt Riddle beats him. Yeah,
that would be a great way to like just rocket Riddle right to the top.
I mean, he is like again, just like Velveteen Dream, just like one of those natural charismatic guys that you can't really teach that to. It's just the it factor. So I feel like the main roster crowd would love him. Pat, what about you? What do you got?
Are we sticking with NXT?
I mean, I have some stuff I definitely want to say about NXT still, but whatever you want, we can jump back and forth.
Okay, no, let's get TakeOver through. I would like to offer up Io Shirai versus Candice LeRae. This match really surprised me, and not because I think that they're not talented wrestlers. I mean, obviously, Io Shirai was one of the top female wrestlers in Japan before she jumped ship, and we all know what Candice LeRae is capable of from her time on the Indies. And quick aside, did you guys see that the Young Bucks were saying that they were disappointed when Candice signed with WWE, and it was always kind of in their head that they would I think it was for the main event of All In, they wanted to have the rematch of the Young Bucks versus the World's Cutest Tag Team.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know they were that high on her.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, if
I mean,
have you ever
I know
seen
they were
their
high
match in PWG, like the first match between those two teams, Mike? Absolutely brutal match. Candice LeRae is just like pouring blood. She gets like super kicks with like thumbtacks on the
Yeah,
boobs.
they put thumbtacks in a shoe and then kick her. Like, the shoe is like specially made, so they're all poking out of it, and they kick her in the face with it. And as Pat said, she is just pouring blood down her face. It's awesome.
It's one of the most brutal matches I've seen in the past probably 10 years. And
wow.
Yeah, apparently that was supposed to be the main event for All In before she signed with WWE. But anyway, I feel like Candice has been kind of disappointing since joining.
Yeah, definitely.
Since joining NXT, and I think most of that is just she hasn't gotten a chance to show it. Like, all of her storylines have been based around her husband, and that has not created like very compelling storylines. And I mean, this storyline was kind of whatever too, but the match itself was awesome, and I love Io's new look. Like, since she turned heel, just the way she dresses, the attitude, the theme song, the Tron graphics, the lighting, like, it all works so well.
It says a lot too that this match for like the women's matches on the card, like, was the top when you're competing with Shayna Baszler, who's like just been so dominant for so many years and like puts on amazing matches.
Hot take, I don't know the last amazing match Shayna Baszler had.
Really?
I do. I'll tell you. She had a cage match with Io Shirai at the last TakeOver, I believe, and it was amazing.
You would call that match amazing?
From what I recall, yeah, I absolutely loved it. It was brutal, and the finish was awesome. Like, she fell out of the cage over Io. I think a lot of people are down on Baszler right now because she's been working with Mia Yim, who, no disrespect intended, is just like clearly a tier below Baszler, Larae, and Shirai. She's just like nowhere near that level, and it really showed in her match. Like, that was the worst match on the card. It wasn't bad by any means, but it just like wasn't up to the standard that I expect from TakeOver matches. And I think that is why everyone is saying like Baszler isn't as good as people say she is.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, and I know that this is just one man's opinion, but I just brought up Dave Meltzer's star ratings for Shayna Baszler.
Here we go.
She's a Cody Rhodes. She's old 3-star Shayna. She has one 4-star match, and then the rest are 2.25.
So you're saying she's consistent?
Consistently decent, yeah.
Yeah, but talking about Io, she is definitely incredible. And her new gear and entrance and music, like, I've never gotten why people like Poppy so much. It's not my thing. But her song with Io's entrance and the video package they made for Io that played on NXT tonight with that music, it fits her perfectly. It's so good. And I love that her promo is almost entirely in Japanese. It just sounds like so much more menacing than her trying to, like, in broken English say, like, you can't stand next to me, like, you're not as good as me. Like, it sounds way more confident and awesome in Japanese. I really like that they stuck with that.
Yeah, remember when Asuka used to cut super sick Japanese promos?
Yeah.
They brought her to the main roster, and she just says, Charlotte is better than me.
Yeah, if you can hear that, it's just me pouring out a beer for Asuka.
Yeah. One for you, one for your homes.
Yeah, so don't put too many eggs into that basket if she gets called up to the main roster. But for now, it's really fun.
Oh, thanks for pulling all the wind out of my sails on that one.
Well,
Josh, that was great, but don't get excited. They're going to ruin her soon.
Yeah, I try not to have that attitude, but sometimes it's just really hard, especially this weekend because because like you started the show with, like, this was a great weekend for WWE. SummerSlam was awesome. TakeOver was obviously awesome. Raw and SmackDown were both great. It's an optimistic time, but I mean, that's the cycle, right? Like, they do something cool, and then you get excited, and then they either completely drop it or totally fuck it up, and then you aren't excited for anything, and then something kind of cool crops back up, and your interest peaks again, and the cycle just continues.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just going to ignore that and keep blindly hoping for a different outcome.
The definition of insanity, folks. Right?
Yep. I do watch a show about fake fighting that's scripted, so.
Yeah, so Shayna Baszler, Mia Yim was pretty disappointing, but I'm glad Candice LeRae and Shirai was there. It's actually the first time, I forget the stat, but it's been months and months, if not more than a year, since there's been 2 women's matches, at least 2 women's singles matches. Yeah. The closest thing was like a mixed tag match and the women's title match. So that definitely picked up the slack for the women's division.
Yeah. I initially thought that the main event was the best match on the card, but after going back and watching them again today at work, I think that I like Io Shirai and Candice LeRae a little bit more than the main event.
So
wow, really?
Meltzer had something to say about that main event, and he said they were trying to do too much for too long.
He can fuck off, man. Fuck Meltzer. He's so wrong.
Well, I partially agree, but I think for the most part, like, I mean, that crowd was super engaged. There was like at least 2 "This is awesome" chants. The final fall, like that whole like in the cage with all the weapons and stuff, like I thought that was all great. I think if they had chopped off like several minutes from their first fall, like maybe actually I don't even know exactly how long that was, but they could have probably cut 5 minutes from the first fall, and I think it would have been like an incredible match. So for him to say too much for too long, it just, I don't know, like that does seem like an overstatement for that match.
The weird thing to me is like, okay, like I feel like you could make the argument that match was overindulgent, which was the word that he used, and that there were way too many false finishes and all this stuff. I did think like when they kicked out of a Canadian destroyer from the top rope, I was like, okay, like what the fuck?
That's very New Japan of them to like do something like that and have them kick out.
But the weird thing is, I feel like that's how Johnny Gargano's matches go. Like his feud with Adam Cole, like their last 2 matches were just insanity, just like that. And think back to his feud with Tommaso Ciampa. They just
exactly.
threw
that's
the
why I
kitchen
think
sink
Meltzer's
at each other.
Full of shit, because like that's like now you have a problem with it after he's previously called matches. Like he called the 2 out of 3 falls match that we saw at Mania with Adam Cole possibly the best live match he's ever seen and one of the best wrestling matches of all time, period. And that exact same thing happened. Yes, I know there was no cage and weapons and yada yada yada, but like Johnny Gargano has always kicked out of insane spots and finishes that he shouldn't kick out of. It's just his thing.
And that's what they do in New Japan. It's the exact same thing that they do in New Japan. Like I can't remember if it was I forget who Will Ospreay was facing. It might have been Okada, but he did like a Spanish fly from the top rope, and there was like to me out like a move like that should finish a match, but whoever it was had kicked out of it, and like I'm willing to bet he gave that match like close to 5 stars, if not 5 stars.
I mean, we'll see what he gives it. I'm sure it's still gonna get like a good rating. There's no way that it's not. But yeah, I did think that was kind of a strange criticism, because it's a criticism you could make about almost any Johnny Gargano pay-per-view match.
I just feel like it told the entire Johnny Gargano story. Like the first part of the match was just pure technical, like a showcase of skill and wrestling, which is something Johnny's known for. Johnny wrestling, like there you go. And then the second part of the match is Adam Cole just saying how much better he is than Johnny, and Johnny like doesn't care and doesn't believe that there's like ever going to be an opponent that he can't beat no matter who they are, and doesn't care about like a fall. Like if you push him too far, he'll do whatever it takes. Like with Ciampa and all the weapons and the handcuffs and all the disgusting spots, like he just gave Cole that first fall because he doesn't give a shit. And then from there, it escalated into kind of what I was just talking about, like all the ridiculous, insane spots we've seen. And like what you guys talked about, him kicking out all this wacky shit. Like I just felt like every part of like who Johnny Gargano is and what we've seen in his time in NXT was like showcased a little bit in that match. And that last fall off the top of the cage with the barbed wire and like Adam Cole's back being all like cut up, that was so awesome. It was so badass.
Yeah, that match was incredible. Like I get the criticism, but I had so much fun watching that match, and it just like the line graph of my excitement was just like a perfectly diagonal line. It just like increased as the match went on.
And it's kind of unfair, like, when a crowd is chanting "Fight Forever" and they literally just seem to fight forever. Like, can you really fault them for that? Like, to actually give the crowd what they're asking for at that point? It's just like, sure, it's really...
Yeah, that's a good point.
Like, he is wrong on this one. Like, this match was, in my opinion, perfectly paced. It told an amazing story. And if this is the way that Johnny Gargano's going out, and it looks like it is, because apparently he came out after the match with Regal and was waving goodbye, and Regal was holding his arms up, then I think it's a good way to go. And like, as much as I don't want him to go to the main roster because of how much I love him and worry about what Vince will do with him, like, what else is there for him to do in NXT?
Has he held the NXT championship yet?
Yeah, like a month ago.
We watched him win it in person.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, he didn't have that for very long, though.
No, he didn't.
No. I don't know. I just feel like he has done everything possible here. Like, I feel like he is a goddamn legend. Like, he's ingrained into, like, the framework of NXT at this point.
And with NXT, like, the goal is, like, you get the championship. It doesn't matter how long you hold it. You just get that notch on your belt. Like, that's not the belt that you want to hold. You don't want to hold that belt for, like, a year, because what's the point? Like, you want to get it and then show, and that proves that you are worthy of moving up to the main roster. And that's where you want to try to make a name for yourself.
Yeah, well, they did like the kind of soft call up with him, but then Ciampa got hurt and like all those plans moved around because it was before WrestleMania. But I think he'll do just fine on the main roster.
Yeah, so I thought it was a great send-off. I thought the whole car was amazing. Fuck you, Meltzer. Moving on. So SummerSlam. I'll start by saying that the pre-show was way better than I thought it was going to be. And they also had several matches on it that they didn't even bother announcing, which is weird to me because if I had known that some of them were going to be there, I feel like I would have been even more excited to watch it. And possibly people who didn't watch the pre-show would have to see these matches.
Well, I'm exactly in that last category. Like, I figured because it started at what, 6?
The pre-show technically started at 5 p.m.
Yeah, 5. So I was like, all right, so there's at least going to be an hour of them just sitting around talking, and then they're going to have a match, and then it's going to be like probably another 45 minutes of them sitting around talking and showing promo packages. So like, why even bother watching it? Because I'm going to see all those promo packages during the show anyways. But yeah, like once I got to your house and you were like telling me like, oh yeah, they did this match, and they had this match, like I was like, oh man, I wish I'd known that they were going to do all of this because I probably would have bothered to watch it.
Yeah, they announced one match, which was the Cruiserweight match, which was really good. But in addition to that, they had Buddy Murphy versus Apollo Crews, Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross defending the women's tag team titles against the Iconics. And they had a segment with Elias which featured Edge on a fucking pre-show in an unannounced segment, which was like the most random thing that I've seen.
Just to segue real quick, did you guys see the Buddy Murphy match against Roman Reigns on SmackDown?
Yeah, it was incredible.
Man, he looked so good. I can't believe like Roman put him over as much as he did.
From what I've read, Roman is a huge fan of Buddy Murphy and wants more matches with him and a full program.
I am all for that.
I think pretty much everyone is a big fan of that guy. He's worked really hard to get himself in crazy shape. He's a very good wrestler. He just seems like a good dude. That match was awesome, and I feel like WWE's been doing a good job in general of really pushing guys that you wouldn't expect. We've seen a lot more of Cedric Alexander than I would have expected for the past couple of weeks. Ali's always in the mix. Andrade has been kind of cruising along lately. And yeah, now Buddy Murphy finally getting the chance to show what he can do, and he sees that opportunity beautifully. That spear cell where he like backflipped was so good. It was both ludicrous and believable.
Yeah. I had to rewind.
Which is the best pro wrestling.
I also really liked the Brainbuster comboed with the what did he do off the ropes after that? I don't remember what he did. It was something crazy, but he gave Roman a brainbuster and then went off the top rope onto him. And
those triple knees that he did too were so good.
Oh yeah, he did. Yeah, he did the Meteora from the top.
Yeah, that's what it was, the Meteora. So, I mean, I knew that he wasn't going to beat Roman, but they did a really nice job, like, making you doubt it for a second. Like, the whole match was fantastic.
There was a couple false finishes there that I was like, I know this isn't going to happen, but I wanted to believe that he might, like, it was specifically when he had his feet up on the ropes and Roman just, like, straight up kicked out at 2. That moment I was like, oh, he might actually get a pin, and then like they can kind of do this back and forth where he can say that he had his feet up on the ropes,
like a dusty finish. Yeah,
exactly.
I think another thing we have to give credit to is Roman Reigns and his ability to just have crazy late kickouts. Like that brainbuster, he kicked out at like 2.9999 seconds. Like he's becoming like this complete master of the false finish.
He's a Kurt Angle with his false finishes.
Yeah. Kurt Angle was great at it. I think AJ Styles is another one that's really good at it. Shawn Michaels was pretty much the like master of it. But I think Roman Reigns is in that class now.
I mean, Roman has just been fantastic all around for me lately. Like I've been loving his program. It's been like so laughable but enjoyable.
Really bizarre that he didn't get any time on SummerSlam.
Yeah, I was gonna say, why? Like he's been so great lately. Why did they leave him off the second biggest show of the year?
It is a little weird, but like I don't really mind. I almost feel like it would have got lost in it all. Like what were they gonna do with him? Because like the story that they're telling and that they told on SmackDown this week, like I really like how they're doing it. And like Rowan and Daniel Bryan went after Buddy Murphy after his match in the locker room. That's why Roman was wrestling him. They had that conversation with Roman backstage as well. Like I don't know. I just feel like it all of that wouldn't have had a place and wouldn't have been as well told on SummerSlam, and I feel like doing it this way on SmackDown, there was less distractions, there was less going on. Like everyone's paying attention, everyone now knows what's happening. Whereas like on a 6-hour show, like you can easily overlook all of that.
Did you guys see that David Otunga chimed in with the legal aspect of what Daniel Bryan did on Tuesday?
No.
Was he sipping from his thermos while he was doing it?
I'd like to think so. He went back into his like lawyer character, and he was like, an admission under duress like that means very little to the courts, if anything. Daniel Bryan has no case here.
That's fantastic. Yeah, but his match with Apollo Crews on SummerSlam was pretty awesome until Rowan came out of nowhere and destroyed him.
Yeah, that was good. But it all serves this storyline, which, just like you were saying, I think has been really good. I think Daniel Bryan has been spectacular in this storyline. His promos on Tuesday were just cracking me up. Yeah. When he was on the ramp and just like screaming at the crowd, and then when they went back to like torture Buddy to get the admission, and like he just played it like this, like soulless, like he had no empathy whatsoever for what was happening. Oh man, it was just so good. Daniel Bryan is so good.
And you know what I'm saying? Like thinking about all of that happening on SummerSlam, like I just don't think it would have been as good as if it was on SmackDown.
It could have, though, because weirdly SummerSlam ended at 10:30, which is a really early ending for SummerSlam. I don't know.
I was just really happy about that.
Yeah, I'm not going to complain about it, but it was just like the timing of SummerSlam was very strange, where they added like 3 matches, but it still ended 30 minutes early with no Roman Reigns. Like it's all just very strange.
Yeah. So briefly, I do want to mention that the Cruiserweight match, the title match on SummerSlam, was awesome, and if you haven't watched it, it's very much worth the time to go back and watch it.
As far as the main card goes, I was very pleasantly surprised by Trish Stratus versus Charlotte Flair.
You know, that was the longest match on the card.
Was it really?
Yeah.
What?
And it made me like I was 100% wrong about that match.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, I was right with who won. Obviously, she was going to win, but I thought it was going to suck. That match was awesome.
And I didn't realize going into it that was her Trish Stratus' retirement match.
Yeah, I don't think anyone really did. They didn't really make a big deal of it or even say it, but it makes sense it would be in her hometown, like on a big stage. She proved that she could still go. She looked like the Trish of old. Like I don't think she really lost a step.
I mean, there's probably a good case to be made that she might come back for a little bit after that match. It might not actually be her retirement match.
I hope it is, though. Like, go out with a match like that. Like, that's a really good way to be remembered.
I don't know. I wouldn't mind seeing her if she can keep putting on performances like that. Like, just have one more run that leads into WrestleMania, then she retires. I'd be cool with that. You got to give credit to Charlotte. I don't know that Trish would have had that type of match with like an average wrestler, and Charlotte's obviously one of the best that the women's division has.
Yeah, Charlotte's amazing. Like, she is unbelievable. It's definitely like mostly due to her that match was as good as it was.
Because of her, they were able to have, was it a Hurricane Rana off the top rope just to be able to pull off that spot? Like, yeah, Trish Stratus isn't doing that with just like anybody. That is a Flair thing to be happening in that match.
To swing in the opposite direction, something that I was incredibly disappointed by. I really liked the match up until the finish between Kofi and Randy Orton, but the finish, man, like, I was so excited. I was like, this is going great. This is awesome. This is everything I was hoping for. And then the double count out, man, I hated that. Yeah,
that really kind of took the sails out of that match. And the match was just kind of fine. It was just there anyway, but the ending really sucked, and that just means that that's not going to be the end of the feud, which is fine. Like I have actually been liking the feud. I just wish they came up with a more creative way to get to that to like continue the feud, you know.
On SmackDown, they had that 6-man tag, which was actually really good, but before it happened, did you see the New Day and Kofi backstage being interviewed with Kayla?
Yes, I did.
Did you catch when Big E and Xavier were making Kofi like lose his mind laughing and he had to look away from the camera?
I missed that.
I don't remember. Remind me.
Big E was like, Kofi said this like really serious thing about like Randy Orton in the match and like his family, and then Big E just immediately is just like, Randy Horton, because they're in Canada and it's Hortons,
and then Xavier was like, no relation.
Yeah, shout out to him, no relation. Kofi just like turned around completely and lost his mind. It was so funny.
And then there was that Instagram video that Corey Graves posted of Big
labeled "This man is an HR nightmare."
I want you and I need you, and this can go the easy way or the hard way. As he's like taking down his straps and like rubbing his chest.
Oh my god,
he's one of the funniest dudes on the planet.
Graves. Oh, that was fucking hilarious. I was crying laughing watching that for the first time. And stupid me, man, thinking like this will finally be the end of Shane and Kevin Owens, and then on SmackDown, like, god damn it.
Yeah, Shane likes that spotlight a little bit too much.
And like, only in wrestling is it normal that like an hour after Kevin Owens trashes Shane's office, they go back in to interview him, and he's like still all distraught examining his broken TV. Like the millionaire that makes a point of like finding him $100,000 and how to him that's nothing, is upset about his like $250 flat screen TV being broken.
Yeah, right.
And then like,
he should be like brushing it off and be like, oh yeah, insurance will cover that.
And then like it's only in wrestling that like a fully grown half naked man can appear at your elbow, and it's just like also completely normal. When Joe just appeared and Shane was like, oh, Joe, perfect.
Oh man, wrestling's the best.
Yeah, I hated that it was Shane, but I really appreciated the segment.
I thought the KO Shane match was what it needed to be at SummerSlam.
Yeah, I don't think it was bad.
I had fun watching it. It was the exact outcome that should have happened. I just wish this wasn't continuing. That's all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel bad for Kevin because he's kind of in that position where he's just like he's got so much momentum behind him, but now he's just kind of floundering because he's stuck with Shane.
It's getting over though. Like the crowd was wicked into Kevin Owens.
Yeah, they do hate Shane, that's for sure.
Yeah, right, and yeah, I think it's kind of playing the line between go away heat and actual heel heat, because the crowd definitely does pop when he beats up Shane, and that's the entire point.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not gonna say it's not working at all. I'm just tired of Shane. Like, there's not much else to say. I just want him to go away and for Kevin to do something else.
Speaking of being tired of people, Goldberg versus Dolph Ziggler,
who's apparently back now, from what he said, like as he was leaving.
Yeah, he said, "I'm back." I mean, this was pretty much exactly as we predicted. He made very quick work of Dolph. I thought it was actually kind of funny that Dolph was just like, "Is that all you got?" He was like Mustafa from Austin Powers,
or like the Black Knight from
on Twitter.
Yeah.
You shot me right in the arm. I'm still alive, just very badly burned. But yeah, I mean, whatever, right? So yeah, before we run out of time, I feel like we got to get to the biggest thing of the entire weekend, which was we finally got to see the
Becky Lynch
Fiend
versus Natalya.
Yeah, we finally got to see Natalya do the sharpshooter. We finally got to see the Fiend live and in person, and it was incredible.
Yeah.
I gotta say, it was worth the wait.
This has been like far and away the most creative character, the most like thought and effort.
There's so many little
character.
nuances too, like throughout everything. Like, just to start with, like the head lantern, like great touch, amazing touch. And then like you pointed out, I didn't even catch it at first when he goes to do like the generic Bray Wyatt taunt, but then he like kind of catches himself and like kind of like has like a spasm and like is fighting his own instincts to do that. Like that was such a good touch.
Then he like put his head in his hands and like just kind of like spazzed out and like just tried to like shake it off.
Yeah.
So good. And then like just the remix of his theme, it was like a screamo version of like the Cult Leader theme. And
hurt, heal.
Yeah, chanting hurt and heal. Like every single part of this was so good. I watched that entrance probably like 9 times.
Yeah.
And just how like the very first thing that you see is Bray Wyatt, is the lantern, and it's Bray Wyatt's severed head.
Oh, so
yeah, there's
and the
nothing
way the
cooler
mouth
than that.
is elongated, like that's the first image we saw, and like once it clicks in your head, you're like, holy shit.
And like the handle was his dreadlocks. Like it was just
I
so
love that
perfect.
touch.
And just everything about it. Like he does wrestle in the mask, thankfully, so that question was answered.
Yeah.
He just like he lost a ton of weight, so he looks great too. And it surprised me that Finn Balor got any offense in at all. But I actually like
did that. Yeah.
Yeah, I like it. It showed that like he's not like immune to damage, but he was like a final boss. Like it didn't, like he just like shook it off like so easily. It showed that he's in like another class, and like regular wrestling moves, even from a former Universal Champion, is just not going to cut it with this thing.
Yeah. And I really liked how he would start to do like a Bray Wyatt taunt or move and like jerk, like twitch out of it and like stop himself. Like he would catch himself doing it. It was like almost like Bray Wyatt was like starting to
Coming
like the
through.
psyche was starting to like fight for control again or something.
Which I do hope we get that like balance going forward too, where we get to see like Bray Wyatt as like that TV show host character on top of the Fiend itself. I hope they continue to kind of go back and forth with that.
I am interested to see how that plays out.
Yeah.
I was reading that they're going to try to keep the Fiend from showing up. Like him and Bray Wyatt are not expected to be on every episode, and they really want to make it like a scary and special thing. And if that's true, I am all for that. Like I definitely think they should work to build, like take their time, be patient, like build like mysticism and like fear and like just like a kind of like a unspoken feeling with every fan, like, and just really let it like sink in.
Yeah, that actually, it kind of reassured me that they're going to do this right, because I feel like it's perfect that we didn't even hear a single word from him on Raw or SmackDown, and it just adds to that kind of mystique, and that he can show up at any time, but he's kind of like above the just like week to week minutia of the shows. It's just, oh man, like so far it's been A plus in terms of the way that they're handling this character.
Can you imagine if we got a Fiend and Finn Balor tag team? Demon Finn Balor, I should say.
Can you imagine? Remember, like, it was around this time last year, I think, that Bray was supposed to face Finn Balor as Sister Abigail, like, in drag. Can you imagine if we actually got that instead of this?
He might not have ever recovered from that.
Yeah, he might have been released after that one.
I mean, he was teaming with freaking Matt Hardy and like the Eaters of Worlds in a tag team, and was just like a character that WWE had totally bungled and mishandled, and no one cared about it all anymore.
Speaking of Matt Hardy, though, he did you guys see his tweet about this?
I did, yeah.
He tied in the whole, and I like that Bray and like Matt Hardy are like, because they're both like kind of paranormal characters, and they had that tag team for like a while. They had that fight at the Hardy compound, which I thought was actually awesome. But he said the lake of reincarnation is very potent. The essence of Sister Abigail may have been deleted, but now the Fiend has taken control of Bray Wyatt's vessel. So I really like that kind of like little continuity, because it's always been like, I remember way back when the Bray Wyatt character first was starting to debut, and Bray explains like how he went from Husky Harris to Bray Wyatt, and he said that like Husky needed somebody and Abigail needed the vessel. So the idea is that Sister Abigail was like possessing Bray Wyatt, but now it seems like the Fiend has completely taken over for Sister Abigail, because Abigail's now just a puppet in the funhouse. So there's just all these like little character details and like callbacks of things that happened from years ago. It's just like the type of continuity and attention to detail that we all want like all the time.
Yeah.
From WWE, and pretty much never get. But in this case, it's just absolutely spot on.
It's the best character work that they've done in years.
Yeah, it's like it just shows like the potential of pro wrestling as like a storytelling medium. Like, it's like the Jim Cornette quote, like, when wrestling's good, there's nothing better, but when it's bad, there's nothing worse. And I think that's really true. Like, yeah, when you play it off perfectly like this, like there's no other format that this could have worked so well in.
I feel like before we wrap up, we should also talk about Seth Rollins and Brock Lesnar.
Oh yeah, there was
because there was a major title change that happened.
All right,
yeah, real quick.
I'm gonna give my quick rundown on this. I thought the match was amazing. It was better than anything I expected from the two of them. I thought there was either going to be shenanigans or Brock was going to kill him in 30 seconds. I'm really glad Brock's not the title holder anymore. I'm really glad that it seems like Brock's not going to be involved because he wasn't on Raw. And I'm happy for Seth Rollins. But it makes no sense to me that the match went the way that it did. It's like he got destroyed 2 weeks in a row on Raw. The second week he came out and acted like he barely could get down to the ring. He could barely walk, let alone fight, and like stumbled in the ring with a chair, and Brock killed him again. So he took him from beating up in the ring, pulling him out of an ambulance, beating him up, and then beating him up again on top of that. And they had built it up like there was no possible way that Seth could compete, let alone wrestle. And then he sells the ribs for the first like minute of the match, and then it just felt like we were watching like a normal Seth Rollins wrestling who had no issues whatsoever. It was like completely forgotten. So like again, the match was amazing, and that's fine because I love the outcome, but like why waste all that time with that type of storytelling if you're going to completely disregard it?
Playing devil's advocate here, how can you be okay with Johnny Gargano kicking out of a Canadian destroyer from the top rope and just all the other inhuman torture that he was put through? But it's unbelievable that Seth Rollins beat Brock Lesnar.
It's totally different
because you like Johnny Gargano.
Johnny does that all the time, and that's part of his character. Like that is something we've been built and trained to expect from Johnny Gargano.
And we don't expect that from Seth, the Kingslayer.
Well, he's facing Brock
Definitely not.
Lesnar of all people. Like, Brock Lesnar is supposed to be, like, if you get hit by Brock Lesnar, you're supposed to be dead, let alone get destroyed 3 weeks in a row by Brock Lesnar.
Taking a really brutal move from Adam Cole is not taking a brutal move from Brock Lesnar, and that's really all you need to say.
Seth has Brock's number. He's the Beast Slayer. He was the only one before this to beat Brock in any kind of like serious manner, and now he's the only one to beat Brock cleanly.
But the last time he did it, he was kicking him in the balls and shit.
Yeah.
I mean, the point is, I am glad Brock Lesnar doesn't have the title, and I'm glad Seth won. And Seth looked amazing, and I think he needed something like this because he was really not looking good. And I'm not just talking about Brock beating him up. Like, his promos were pretty stale and boring, and I was just getting pretty down on him. But that was an incredible performance, and again, I'm glad it happened. I just think that it does not make much sense at all to me.
Okay, JR, maybe he needs to just open up
stop
those
hitting
fists
with
next
those closed
time too.
fists. Yeah. I mean, I'm totally with JJ. It didn't make any sense, but I'm glad it happened.
I'm not going to make a comment about Bill Watts. I'm avoiding that.
No, I'm kind of with you. Like, I thought it was like, I definitely took notice that he just completely stopped selling the ribs, but I mean, whatever. It's an adrenaline rush.
Yeah, sure. It's fine. Like, he went SSJ 2, so new power level unlocked. All right. I guess we'll end it there. Thanks for listening, guys. It really does help us out a lot if you can like the show, leave us a review on iTunes, and share it with your friends. As you can see, when you write into the show, it spurs a lot of great conversation. Thanks again, Nate, for writing in. We really appreciate it. We'd love to hear from the rest of you. So if you want to talk to us about Raw, SmackDown, NXT, the Dirt Sheets, or AEW, which we're going to have a lot to talk about soon with All Out and their television premiere on the horizon, please shoot us an email. We'd love to hear from you. You can reach us at ptw@aiptcomics.com. That's ptw@aiptcomics.com. You can find all of us on aiptcomics.com. In addition to wrestling, you'll find the most comic reviews anywhere every Wednesday, and several other podcasts that are all really good. And as I said, we're going to be having a predictions episode coming up for All Out, and we're going to be talking a lot about AEW. Hopefully, the three of us will be at the second TV taping in Boston. Tickets go on sale on Friday, so fingers crossed. And yeah, thanks for listening, guys. Really appreciate it. As always, I will leave you with wrestling rules, fuck the world, and party hard.
I want you. I want you right now. We can do this the easy way or the hard way, Graves. I want you. I got to have.